Good morning, everyone. My name is Karla Martinez de Salas. I'm the head of editorial content for Vogue Mexico and Latin America. I'm really excited to be here today to welcome you to the next edition of Vogue Minutes, a digital space that allows us to have conversations with celebrities, representatives of culture, artists, musicians, and fashion experts to talk about topics that we're excited about and that incite curiosity and interest. Today's guests are two experts in the field of fashion who will tell us about what they're up to, what they're doing, and their proposal to expand their work into other continents, and above all, a topic that interests us, a lot of us these days, which is sustainable fashion. So it's a pleasure to present to you Jordana Guimaraes and Óscar López.
Thank you for having us this morning.
Thank you. Jordana, do you want to start by introducing yourself and probably saying your name correctly?
So thank you so much for having me today. My name is Jordana Guimaraes. I'm the co-founder of Fashion Innovation. We're a platform bringing community together to discuss technologies and innovation and the importance it plays in bringing sustainability all through supply chain for the fashion industry. And we're in partnership with the United Nations Office for Partnerships, FIT, Parsons School of Design, and a few others. And yeah, the whole purpose is just to bring the world together on a really important topic, which is sustainability.
Great. So I also want to add that Jordana and I met during COVID, and I finally had the chance to meet her a few weeks ago in Miami. So Óscar, I'm really happy to meet you via Zoom, but I hope I get to meet you in person the next time I'm in Miami.
I would love to. Karla, thank you so much for having me this morning, and I'm honored to be part of the panel discussion and highlighting the educational perspective when it comes to the topic that we're discussing today. I'm the fashion director for Miami International University of Art and Design. I oversee the fashion programs. Even though I'm based in Miami, it's a system of schools, so I also have Tampa and Dallas. I have been working in higher education for the past 10 years. I'm a former regional director with Fashion Group International, which is a global nonprofit organization. And before transitioning to academia, I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue corporate office overseeing talent acquisition and planning for South Florida.
Thank you so much. You look so young. You've had a career full of a lot of really interesting positions. So we're really excited of the insight that you will bring to the panel, to both of yours. I was saying that I met Jordana a few weeks ago in Miami. I actually met her at an event that we did in collaboration with Mana Fashion. And for those of you who don't know what Mana Fashion is a public benefit organization that aims to foster a global, diverse, inclusive, and prosperous fashion community in our neighborhoods. Part of the Mana Common ecosystem, Mana Fashion endeavors to nurture the development of fashion industry activity amongst participants from all segments of the market. Their goal is to support sustainable and innovative fashion business development in our communities in Miami, Jersey City, and Chicago. So it was really interesting because I have not spent a lot of time in downtown Miami, but it was really great to be in the space of Mana Fashion headquarters, and to hear all the interesting plans that they have for downtown. And a lot of us remember what the meatpacking district was in the early 2000s. It was somewhere where people didn't venture a lot. You know, they started opening pasties and a lot of the different restaurants, but the Mana group was responsible for investing in places like Milk Studios that really changed the landscape of the meatpacking district in New York and that part of West Chelsea. So I'm sure that there's a lot of really great things to come for downtown Miami, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So we have a few questions today. I'm gonna just call them on you by name. We can start with Jordana. How do you think we can expand the work of Latin American designers in other countries and make them the possibility of selling on a more global scale?
I think that nowadays the way that a brand internationalizes, it's a lot easier in some ways with all of the different platforms that we have on social media. What I've always gravitated towards when it comes to Latin American brands is, and just Latin brands in general, is that there's always such beautiful like storytelling, craftsmanship, like the heritage always stands out in a really big way, bigger than other nationalities tend to put that big of a role in those brands. And I think that nowadays, when it comes to internationalizing that into other markets, I think because people are looking to feel more connected to brands and they want to know more about the why, the purpose behind a brand being born and the why behind what, how things are being done and who's making clothes, the clothes that they're purchasing, like all of these things, I feel like it's always been really prominent in the Latin culture when it comes to fashion. So I think just really putting that first and on the forefront before anything else, I think that any place in the world is going to gravitate towards it, especially because, the storytelling and the people behind something, when I think of sustainability, I think of people automatically. So I think just that in itself is really going to push other parts of the world to want to showcase and carry those brands. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
I know. I feel like before COVID, a lot of when we spoke to Latin brands and when you were in touch with them, a lot of them were kind of trying to keep up with the race of, I need to show in Paris, I need to show in London, I need to show in Milan, or, 4 times a year. But we realized during COVID that schedule is very gruesome for small designers and for people that are actually doing more slow fashion. How would you, Óscar, for example, how would you describe sustainability in a kind of post-COVID environment and with your experience in fashion?
I think that sustainability, when it comes to sustainability, we have seen a lot of initiatives. And I think that we're moving on the right path. I will say that sustainability, innovation, diversity and inclusion, that's going to be not only a topic of conversation, but it's also an expected. It's already expected, and consumers are becoming more educated and they're demanding this from brands. So I feel that brands and designers will need to adapt to what consumers are demanding today.
I agree. And I feel like when you did talk about sustainability before, it was, kind of recycled fabrics and, that kind of, I even think the people don't even know the definition, right? So Jordana, how would you describe sustainability in fashion?
I would describe it just really doing what's best for the world in which we live in. And that includes everything from the way we treat people to how inclusive we are, not only externally, but internally in our company culture, to the fabrics that we're, using when manufacturing these pieces, to not necessarily, manufacturing like 1,000 pieces of a certain size of something that's in the collection, but made to order, dropping smaller collections, slower fashion, like you spoke about. And then that goes all the way to e-commerce, with virtual fitting, which now can be done really easily with so many companies so that we don't have the problem of so many exchanges and boxes going back and forth. So I think it can play a role throughout all of the supply chain in different scenarios. But I just really, I think sustainability, I think of every step, every action, doing it, not only to improve the industry, but to make the world a better place for all of us to live in. So that's kind of what comes to mind. Yeah.
I know. I feel like we don't even think about the boxes, right? Like the shipping of back and forth and that kind of new idea of, virtual fitting rooms. And they're all things that like definitely help the environment and help us because you don't even think about the plane, right? The trying to be kind of responsible involves a lot of different like steps in the fashion process. And I think that's why the fashion industry is one of the, biggest offenders in contributing to, the carbon footprint. The carbon footprint in fashion is enormous.
Yeah, and it's a big issue, right, for us to solve.
From your perspective, is it possible to transform the fashion industry to something more sustainable?
It's absolutely possible. I think there's still a lot of things that we have to do as an industry. For example, even when we mentioned how a lot of people don't even have really the meaning to sustainability, I think that because the industry, I think if everyone in this call answers what does sustainability mean to you, we're going to get a different answer. And I think for us to really be able to concretely make change and do the right actions towards sustainability, I think we as an industry have to come up with a unified meaning in some way, somehow. And then I think also just, not only conversations have to take place, but action, and we have to follow those actions through to kind of see how things start to change so that other people in the industry can also adopt that same methodology and be able to take it forward. So it's possible, but I think we have a long way to go, but changes are being made day by day, which is exciting to see.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the designers are definitely more interested, designers, retailers. And on that note, Óscar, you said that you worked for Saks in talent acquisition a few years ago before moving into the academic world. How do you see this transformation of the fashion industry into trying to be more sustainable, diverse, and inclusive in terms of moving forward, and how has it changed since you started your career?
Absolutely, that's a great question, Karla. I think that what is happening today with diversity and inclusion, sustainability, and technology, feel that we're on the right path. But at some point, this has to be exposed at a larger scale. I feel, like I mentioned before, I feel that instead of a topic of conversation, this is going to be an expectation in the future. From a educational standpoint, changes, for example, that we have made in the curriculum today will be reflected in the next, couple of years. We're going to see designers implementing, or being more conscious about diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and then the decisions that, education. I feel that education has a huge impact on decisions that we make as designers.
Absolutely, I feel like that's right. When you were just saying about the curriculums and how, they've obviously changed. So then you're going to the graduates that you have are more aware of sustainable fashion because you've been hearing about it. And also from an HR perspective, because a lot of the times, we say we want to be more representative in our pages or what have you. But if the people that you're working with don't reflect that change, it's hard to kind of preach, these ideas without starting kind of internally, right? And I feel like, especially, in 2020 when we lived, with Black Lives Matter and how important it was to talk about these things, and especially, in the places where we work. So I feel like it's really interesting that you say that now in curriculums, this is something that's important and something that we need to teach, the next generation of people going into the workforce, right?
Absolutely, Karla. I feel that this generation, it's demanding this, and they're very conscious about, their education, and they're already expecting this in the curriculum. So as educators, we had to adapt, we had to change, and we had to evolve, and we had to make sure that the curriculum that we have, it really aligns to what the industry is expecting. So I think that's important.
Absolutely. Jordana, with fashion innovation, obviously, again, I keep bringing up COVID, but it did kind of change the industry. How do you feel at least your programs and your content has evolved, from pre-2020 to be, obviously have on more panels designers that are very aware of diversity and inclusion and how important it is for the industry?
Such a good question. And it's been a whirlwind, so much, I've learned so much. I have to say that I've grown so much as an entrepreneur and a person. And speaking of, I can give one example, and I'm forever grateful to this entire team, but the team at Mara Hoffman, when, Black Lives Matter, the movements that happened, George Floyd, they were so pivotal in really sharing so much knowledge with us. The first thing, the difference, right, between inclusion and diversity, there's a huge difference with those two words where honestly, I wasn't aware until I started asking questions to people that were really kind of on the forefront always when it came to that topic. And it was amazing, like how much we learned, how much we've evolved. And also, you know, I feel like during COVID, because we were forced to go digital with the events and our content and everything that we did, we brought the world together. And the power of that, I mean, it's immense, especially when it comes to inclusivity and diversity, because we had from, you know, artisans in India to fabric makers in Nigeria to CEOs and leaders in the US all come together on the same stage digitally. And when those conversations happen and when you have a meeting of the minds from completely, not only when you talk about race, ethnicity, gender, but also when you speak about different backgrounds and what they each bring to the fashion industry in conversation together. I always use this sentence now, but magic really happened during COVID for us when that happened, because people came together in a way that I had never seen before COVID. And so I'm always one of those that looks at the positive of everything and tries not to like really like keep thinking of the negative. And really the positive of COVID was how united people became and how people really leaned on each other, and we all needed each other in different ways, but in some way. And I think that that was really, really great for the industry. And I think that because of what happened, it's not something that will ever be forgotten, because it was such a huge thing that happened to the entire world. And so I feel like the industry has taken that with them, and I'm excited to hopefully see that continue.
That's so great. That's such an amazing way to look at it. And it's so true. There were some really, I think a lot of the positive that came out in the industry is that we said, like, you know, the diversity and inclusion not just being a trend, but really a conversation that we have to continue to have on all levels, from designers to the executive floor to fashion assistants, you know, and how to bring in, you know, really different people from different backgrounds. Because, you know, at least in my experience, when I first started working in fashion, you know, everyone kind of looked a certain way, and they didn't look like me. You know, I was one of the few Mexican girls in you know, at many editorials for many years. So I feel like that's definitely like a change and something that has become more positive. And even when we think about, you know, Latin designers, right? There's like, you know, when I think when all of us started, it was like Óscar, Carolina, Narciso, maybe Maria Cornejo a little later. And now you have a whole kind of new generation of designers that are doing things differently. Óscar, how do you think we can inspire, you know, Latin American designers to kind of take the leap and show their, you know, the collections, like as far as like the next generation of students that you work with? How do you think we can help them get recognized and really like follow through with their work? In terms of, do you like in the schools, do you promote kind of working for designers or kind of taking the leap and starting their own lines, or does it just depend?
It depends on the student, Karla. One of the things that we do in the school to promote sustainability and technology is expose the students not only within the curriculum to the topics such as, you know, I can give you an example. Recently, we went through a restructure of the curriculum, not only implementing new courses that emphasize sustainability, but also the inner structure of courses that we had. So some of the things that we do to create that consciousness to students is partner with the industry. So we have worked with multiple brands and designers here in Miami and Latin America that promote sustainability. So we make sure that our students get that opportunity to be either part of a contest, to either do an internship. But I feel that the educational aspect of it, being aware what's going on and what is happening in the industry, will have a huge impact on them making decisions as designers.
Right. Thank you, Óscar. Jordana, how do you think we can inspire Latin American designers to work with materials that help reduce impact on the environment? Like, where do you think the conversation begins with them?
Yeah, so I think, and again, maybe because I was born and raised in Brazil, I look at like the Latin community just is so great in so many ways. But even when we look at, you know, let's take organic as an example, right? Like Here in the US, it became a bigger and a bigger and a bigger trend to where everyone now wants to buy. And let's talk about food as an example, but just organic food in general. I feel like in Latin America, in Brazil and places that I've been, organic was never, it doesn't have to have a differentiation because everything is organic, right? Like when you buy a piece of fruit, like it deteriorates after 2-3 days, which is normal, where here a banana can stay for like 10 days, right? So when I look at that and I compared both industries, I feel like it's just about taking what Oscar has been saying, the education piece, because like the fabrics, the textiles, like all of, things can be made now with fruits, with like natural ink, using ink from different, like, just natural resources in the environment, in the Amazon rainforest. So I feel like everything already is there and it exists. It's just about how do we get that in front of the designers so that they can implement that into how they make their clothes. And I think it all starts, with conversations such as this beautiful event, with Vogue Minutes, conversations in our platform, conversations, just the conversation so people know where to find it, because once they know where to find it and they know that it's going to do good for the environment, they'll adopt it. So yeah, I would definitely think of the education perspective with this question.
I agree. I feel like sometimes in the industry, we're so used to things kind of being secret and not sharing, like, where do you produce this? Where do you produce that? But like, once you know, like, oh, so-and-so's doing bags made of, cactus or what have you, like share those resources. Because I feel like sometimes it's hard to find out like who's doing that unless you're going to these trade shows and fairs. So it's really nice to kind of be able to listen to different panels and have, say, oh, this exists, like where do I find it, right? And how can I become more, how can I start using either recycled fabrics that like dead stock, or where can I find new innovative things, which a lot of them are coming from Latin America. So that's really interesting. Oscar, what changes and economic advantages will this new model bring to the industry? How do you feel like, I think everyone's kind of agrees that it's super important for the future, but also just important economically, right?
I agree, Karla, and I feel that going back to the educational aspect of it, which is what I do now. It's students that leave higher education, having that experience, having that knowledge. There's an opportunity to maximize job opportunity. We're expanding career path for them, not only to transition as a designer, but also to work under a brand that believes in sustainability. So I think from an economic perspective, maximizing job opportunities for the recent graduates is important.
Absolutely. I feel like a friend of mine just is getting her master's also in sustainable fashion, and there's so many companies now, right, that have this as a career and are hiring people that are specialized in this. So I feel like that at least is a really important change. What do you think, Jordana, how is the work of artisanal communities involved in this business model? You've spoken a little bit about that, especially like in Brazil and Latin America. I feel like in a certain way, we've been leading this slow fashion trend without even knowing it, because so many of so much of our culture is based on these wonderful artists and communities that have been working in this manner for years.
No, so I definitely see it as it's something that's, I guess, becoming more obvious to the globe in terms of how important artisanal fashion is in the industry, not only because of the sustainability when it comes to, the slow fashion aspect of it and everything else, but like to just empower so many people that come behind an artisanal brand, And I automatically, I have a lot of examples, but there are companies that are doing incredible work with like Guatemala, in Brazil, like a lot of, and when it comes to artisans, it's a community that comes together. And I think the word community for me, it's so important. And, it's great to see that the industry now, it's no longer about the designer being like the best designer. Of course, you're always going to have a few that still want to be like me. But majority now is really leaning towards community. And I think artisanal fashion really has kind of set like the tone for that, where a lot of people, when they start to think community now, they can look at those examples to really be exemplary when it comes to that. So artisanal fashion definitely has come in a huge way. I feel like during COVID, even with getting themselves out there more, people wanting to support them more. And again, because there's community behind it. So I think, I think it's super special and really important for the industry.
We're going to cross over to our questions from our audience, which we have 3 really good questions. But how do you distinguish, I think, Jordana, you've just been speaking about this a bit, but how can you distinguish a piece that's made with sustainable materials? I mean, I think it's kind of hard to know, and some designers, a lot of the times you can't even tell the difference, right? I mean, between I've seen some great bags that are from, cactus leather, which is being used a lot here in Mexico, and, normal leather.
I think, it's not easy to distinguish. I do have to say, though, I mean, personally, every time I wear something that is sustainable, so actually I'm wearing right now from Ecowelf in Spain because there's no Planet B. Every time I wear something that's like sustainable, I do feel it different on my body. There's like this buttery, soft feeling, whether you're talking about leather or, whatever the textile is. I feel like it dresses better, but it also feels good in the skin. And I can't explain it. I do feel a difference on a personal level, but I think when it comes to someone not putting something on, I think it's the company's job to educate the consumer. So I think just simple, now there's so many clothing that comes with like a barcode that you can scan on your phone, and you could read everything about, how it was made, and like the supply chain, et cetera, to from farming to conception. So I think that would be the best way, but it's hard, I guess, just going into a store, you can't see it, but you can feel it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I feel like, in Mexico, a lot of the traditional dresses, like for example, the traditional huipil, that now have become like very fashionable. They always, there's a reason that the women have been wearing them in places like Oaxaca. It's very hot, so like in the summer you can wear them and feel very cool, and the fabric is beautiful. But yeah, I feel like even kind of vegetable leather bags, like you can't really tell the difference, and it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe it doesn't look like real leather, but it's with a purpose, right? So I feel like a lot of people are more excited by that than, if their bag looks like crocodile or what have you. I actually feel like weird now when I'm wearing, in the same way that the fur industry kind of has been out of fashion, and you can also say that, synthetic fur can't be good for the environment. So there's a lot of, we could talk for hours, so I'm gonna ask Óscar the next question. But what materials are you guys betting on or seeing from for example, at your curriculums at school? Like, are there things that are being pushed more than others?
What I have seen, Karla, and I see this happening often, is that alternative leather, it's an option, and it's something that we're looking at. We offer accessory design, so that's a topic of conversation. We have a great company in Mexico leading this concept of creating vegan leather out of cactus, and you mentioned that. So I see that taking a huge lead when it comes to the fashion industry. And we have major and high-profile companies already working on this.
It's really interesting. It's, we do a pop-up shop in Mexico and in Miami, and 3 of the designers in December were using cactus leather. And you've always heard of the many benefits of cactus on health, but like now they found a way to make it into this really nice leather, and the products, you're not sacrificing, aesthetics for it. So that's really interesting that you guys are seeing them, for the next generation of designers. So I think this is a question for both of you. So we can start with Jordana. What is the proposal for sustainable fashion being completely inclusive? I think they're kind of different ideas, but in when we talk about, you know, sustainability and as you said, these three words of being inclusive and diversity, like how do you see the next wave?
I'm going to use an example that makes sense to me just because it's what we learned and what we put into action in our company. But the people behind me that you see in this photo, they're all from the favelas in Rio. We actually partnered with an organization that takes talent, everything from the filmmaker, makeup artist to the models from the favelas, to give them an opportunity to get out and, you know, become the person they want to become. And so with this as an example, it's all over our website and it's our brand. So that's, you know, you hire someone for just that one particular job, or, you know, whether it's to make a piece of clothing or to model for a shoot or whatever it may be, but then it's over. And really, when you speak of diversity, is how do you continue to empower, you know, individuals, whether it's through models that you have in your shoot or internally. So most recently, just a few weeks ago, the gentleman in the white pants in the photo, we now hired him to actually, he's now part of our team full-time working with us. And we continue to partner with this organization to get the word out to the rest of the world. So I think, and you can use that, you know, when it comes to a designer, but I think it's not just about what you put out there and how inclusive you're being in your runway shows and your photo shoots, et cetera. But how do you continue to empower that movement internally with what you do that people don't see? But that it's super important for your company to grow, again, with the different perspectives and different mindsets. So that's, you know, kind of what I see when it comes to sustainability. It's not just about what you show to the world, but what are you doing internally for your company to be as successful as possible by being inclusive? So yeah.
Óscar, how would you answer this question? I mean, I feel like you're guiding, you know, what we've been saying, like the next generation. What is the proposal for sustainable fashion being completely inclusive in the academic world?
You know, it's happening today, Karla. And not, you know, I can not only talk for our university, but as, you know, as we speak today, there are schools making changes when it comes to the curriculum. And I feel that going back to the sustainability question, you know, when we talked about inclusivity and sustainability, you know, we talk about bringing people together for a common goal, you know, from diverse background, diverse education, and having this type of conversation that we have today to talk about sustainability and the future of fashion, I think it's important. Bringing everyone together and let them know that there are resources available, and making sure that everyone is aware. I think that's important.
Thank you. Lastly, Jordana, do you want to tell us where we can find Fashion Innovation, your platform names, what you guys have coming up that our audience would love to know about to continue these great, really insightful conversations?
First, I just want to say a huge thank you again. This conversation was amazing, and this is so, yeah, I'm just so thankful to have been a part of it. And to find us, so Fash Innovation, so it's commonly misspelled, but it's just FASH and then innovation fully spelled out .NYC. That's for the website, social, pretty much all across the board is just fashinnovation.nyc. And what we have coming up, which I'm really excited about, is our biannual worldwide talks, which will be September 7th. And we always focus it on 4 key pillars. So sustainability, innovation, entrepreneurship, inclusivity. So really excited for that. That's coming up. And yeah, just would love to get in touch with anybody because again, I genuinely love people. And I think people make the world go round, not to sound cheesy, but I'm a big believer. So just thank you again for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much. And how are you working with Mana just to bring that connection together?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to have been invited to their launch event when I saw you again, Karla, and met a lot of incredible people. But I heard the director speak, and she kept talking about community. And she kept talking about how everyone there played a role in Mana, even if they weren't directly involved at that point, but the fact that they were there, they were a part of it. And that really resonated with me because of the community angle. So I immediately reached out and I said, not only do I want to support, but I want to be a part of it. So they sent me all of the projects and I'm already connecting them to anybody and everybody in our network that can really develop the communities in Miami to its fullest potential, because the potential is just incredible there. And I'm excited to help them and collaborate with them and bringing our community to Miami.
And I also think that, Óscar, I think this is going to be a really interesting way to end our conversation, because I feel like Miami has changed so much. And another thing that we've seen in the past 2 years is that you don't need to live in New York to be a designer. You know, you don't need to be somewhere. You can live in Miami and, you know, obviously develop your brand. Whereas before, I feel like we were very stuck on this idea that you had to move to, you know, New York or London, Milan, Paris, that those were kind of the big capitals. And that has changed so much. So tell us how to find you and what events you have coming up and anything that you want to share with the audience.
Absolutely. The university space in Miami, downtown Miami. We're getting ready for Swim Week. We have been part of Swim Week for the past 7 years. Recently, talking about sustainability, we had an upcycle exhibit in collaboration with the Upcycle Project. Going back, I know you had a great question, Karla, and you know we talked about Mana and what they're doing here in Miami when it comes to fashion. I feel that what Mana Fashion is doing today, it was needed in Miami for many years, and I'm so happy that this is happening now. You know, bringing the community together in a single platform, not only bringing them together, but also providing resources that were not available. I think that Mana is deviating that perception, like you mentioned, of recent graduates telling me, look, I have to move to New York. I have to find a job, or, you know, I cannot find suppliers in Miami, so I have to go to another city. So the fact that Mana is bringing all of this together is deviating that perception that you have to move out of Miami to find resources.
And I really feel like Miami is really kind of the melting pot of so many Latin communities and cultures. So that's exciting. And it's really great that Mana has brought us together as a community. I mean, just in the past, you know, month, I've met both of you, which has been really interesting and great to kind of meet another, you know, to bring this community together as something that's really important for Vogue. So thank you so much to both of you, Óscar and Jordana. We've reached the end of this space. I thank you so much for all the information that you've provided with our audience. I think it's been a really fun, productive conversation and a great place to meet. We leave the audience with a lot of great lessons learned. So thank you both for being a part of this episode. Thank you to our audience for joining us on another episode of Vogue Minutes, and we hope to see you at the next one.